The two trends that have kind of been battling the last few years are kind of a retros 80 trend and then a 90s like that lumberjack kind of look. And I definitely see that lumberjack kind of look winning out. Earth tones, red plaids, very much Pat Moore when you think of that, and beards. And I see that kind of pulling ahead this year.
Welcome to the Not Snowboarding Podcast, a delightfully tasteful glimpse into the other side of snowboarding.
That was Daniel, Burritos and Snow Cochrane, discussing trends from SIA in Denver. And you're listening to the Not Snowboarding Podcast, episode number 14. I'm your host, Nate Mousson. Before we get into Daniel's report from SIA, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Shred Soles. Shred Soles are a snowboarding-specific replacement snowboard boot insole that I developed about 5 years ago. They are canted at 4 degrees, which helps realign your ankles, knees, and hips to a more natural and balanced riding posture. Most importantly, they're super comfortable. I was just on the snow yesterday at Seven Springs, Pennsylvania with my friend Matt and a bunch of other buddies. 2 days before the trip, Matt hit me up and said, "My boots are killing me, man. I need some Shred Soles." He happens to live near me, walking distance actually, so I went over to his house and did some boot fitting with him. He ended up with a pair of Shred Soles and some heel wedges under his heels to completely eliminate the heel lift he was experiencing. Fast forward to yesterday when Matt and I ran into each other on the snow at Springs, and the first thing he said to me is, "Man, my feet feel great. Thank you. I should have done this years ago." Matt's story sums up what my goal with Shred Soles really is. Parlaying my many years of professionally fitting snowboard boots into more happy feet around the world. And to that point of genuinely wanting your boots to fit better, Shred Soles have a 90-day, no-risk, 100% satisfaction guarantee. If they don't make your feet happier, just say the word and send them back for a full refund, including your shipping. So for the entire month of February, the podcast audience can use the discount code TNSP for the Not Snowboarding Podcast at www.shredsoles.com to get 10% off Shred Soles and the full line of boot fitting accessories, like heel wedges that eliminate heel lift and add impact absorption, or insole blanks that take up about a half a size in your boots, perfect for snugging up, packed out, and sloppy fitting boots, and 10% off everything else on the site. That's discount code TNSP at checkout. Okay, enough shameless self-promotion. On to the episode. Returning podcast guest, snowboarding blogger, Daniel Cochrane checks in from the Snow Sports Industries of America trade show, otherwise known as SIA in Denver. I was personally considering attending this show this year for both Shred Soles and the podcast, but obviously I didn't. Daniel and I discuss why many retailers and companies made the same decision to not attend. Along those lines, Daniel breaks down the biggest story of SIA this year. Let's jump into the chat. Good to talk with you. It's been too long.
Yeah, good to talk to you too. Can you hear me okay?
I do. I hear you well. I don't know what AJ's status is. I hope he's okay. He was planning on being here, but I don't know. Maybe he got caught up on the snow or something.
Well, if there's a place to be caught up on, that's a good one to be.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, man, super psyched to talk with you about SIA. I feel like we have like a live reporter in the field.
Semi-alive. It's already been 2 days. So.
Please tell me that you went to the Protect Our Winters, what was the name of it, Burritos and Bloody Marys event this morning?
No.
Oh.
Because the reason being is I, like everyone else that went to the Red Fang show last night, barely got out of bed today. So that was a Capita concert, and that included, I saw Blue this morning. They're staying a couple doors down from us in this hotel. And we're crawling out of the room at about 9:45. And he comes out of the elevator, and he's like, "Oh, man, I overshot my landing last night. supposed to be at a meeting 45 minutes ago," and he runs in his room, and then the other elevator door opens up, and Corey Smith kind of staggers off of it and doesn't know what he's doing. He's like, he just went in the room, and so Corey goes in there behind him, and that was a really fun show though, so it was worth it.
You went too big and overshot the landing.
Yes,
That's code for drinking way too much and staying up way too
Yeah.
late. That's funny.
Yeah.
So I'm old. I don't even know that band at all. What type of music is it?
Kind of a metal type kind of thing. Kind of a metal. Yeah, I would call them metal for sure. They're from Portland, so they kind of got a little Portland taint to their metal. But it's so it's almost hipster metal. God, somebody right now is throwing something at their screen when they heard that. But no, they're rad. They're super rad. They've been in both the Capita videos have featured some of their music. Good band. So fun times.
Very cool. Well, I definitely want to talk to you about music, and there have been a couple shows. Was that like the best one, or was that the only one you went to, or?
That's been, I think, the best one so far. I don't know there's a couple other things going on, but there always seems to be one every year that's the standout one. There was a Pennywise show a couple years ago, and who was last year? I can't even remember. There was a Deltron 3030 show one year, and Arbor is real good. They've had this one band a couple times. It's a Clash cover band, and they come out dressed as nuns, and they're called the Nuns of Brixton.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah, and they're actually pretty good. Most of those cover bands are actually really good, at what they do.
The Pennywise show, I remember for some shops where these big shows aren't cheap to go to, and you might just want to go to like a regional show that's a little bit closer to home, that maybe you just get $100 hotel and knock it out in 2 days, and not go to SIA. And when that Pennywise show was in play, I think that tipped a lot of shops over the edge. Yeah, from at least the folks that I talked to, I was like, well, I'm going to get to see Pennywise. That's kind of like something they grew up listening to and writing to. So the music venues, really do play into it. Yeah.
It's really, let's be honest. That's the primary thing on most people's, I know they're like on your end, there are shop buyers and that kind of stuff that come out, but from the media and the people that are working here, the primary thing is where's the party,
I wonder what changed in the course of Capita's business plan by not attending that meeting this morning.
I would have to say almost very little, because if you're a buyer and you make a 9 a.m. appointment, you probably don't understand a whole lot about the industry anyway.
It's like the clean-cut ski shop that just got approved for Capita.
Yeah, like if you're up and ready to go at 9 a.m., at this place, I don't know. Like, who are you?
That's so funny. So what is the layout this year? When you look at the show floor, it's like a snow sports event. So there's skiing, snowboarding, kind of a little bit of whatever is in between. What is the percentage of snowboard vendors to ski vendors, just kind of as a gut feel?
Well, the layout's pretty much the same every year. Snowboarding, it's only been around 35 years, so we're still, we're back of the bus. Literally, we're put in the back of the convention center, the very back, and it's probably about, best guess, like good case scenario, a third, but it might be closer to a quarter of the floor space. But I also think that part of that is that there's a lot more kook ski companies than there are kook snowboard companies. So there's a lot more filler like random ski shit, people selling like pins, like lapel pins, and just a booth dedicated to that.
Right.
And then there's also, you have to think about, there's a couple of these huge, long-established ski brands like that don't have anything to do with snowboarding, like Obermeyer and Spyder, and they just have these immense booths that just take up all this room. So that's a large portion of the ski space, So, but yeah, it's about 25% in the back where the bathrooms are. And the greasy smelling food, no respect still, 30 years in. So.
Is that good? Are you like closer to the food? Is there like a buffet there?
Dude, the food, it's a convention center. I mean, it might as well be an airport, I mean, well, in fact, we walked back there today. It's $4 for a soda. So, I mean, if you're willing to pay it, by all means do. But, I mean, you can't eat in there for probably less than $20. That's per person, and that's shit food, of course. I mean, it's really because a lot of those guys working in there are just held hostage. They can't leave, so that's where they have to run over and get food. And actually, that's part of what is the biggest story of SIA this year, and we'll get into that in a couple seconds. But that kind of leads to what part of that is.
What is it? Let's jump right into it. What's the biggest story at SIA this year?
The biggest story is that Burton, Mervyn, and Skullcandy are not here.
Right.
They have no booth space this year. They just, I've gotten some conflicting information, so I'm still not sure if this is true or not, but I'm kind of settling on the fact that Mervyn's not here at all. I kind of heard that they were across the street, but then I know the people I know involved with Mervyn, Burtner, Crush, Kalisa, those kind of guys, the guys that I want to go see over there and see are not here. And Burtner's the team manager, so I don't think they're here at all. Burton is here, just not at SIA. They're about a mile down the road. They have leased out a nightclub, which is rather large. It's a big place. And we went there first night, and they're having all their people come down there. And my sources at Burton, whom I talked to, so you can, take into account my source, but they told me that to lease out that nightclub for the 4 days of the show, 5 days of the show, they have open bar, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., full catered food. They're saving money versus having a booth here at SIA.
Yeah,
and so that's the Skullcandy is across the street. They're in the bar at the Hyatt Hotel. So they're just gonna have a couple parties, and that's kind of what Skullcandy does anyway. They just kind of have big booth kind of party thing, I mean. So I mean that kind of fits their thing, but that's the big deal. I think there's a lot of dissension here towards the establishment of SIA. I mean, this is costing a lot of people a lot of money. When Burton doesn't see the value in buying a booth here, you got to just imagine how much brands like Dinosaurs Will Die and stuff are really investing, like how much of their budget is really invested, in things like SIA. And if you have a large company like Burton that doesn't see the economic, viability in it, that should be a huge red flag to the people that are running SIA.
Yeah, and I have a snowboard boot insole company, as a lot of the listeners know, and I actually did the math on it for my company. Lots of the shops will ask when I'm talking to them, "Oh, are you going to be at SIA?" And I get into this conversation that we're kind of having right now. Well, I did the math to do it, and it's $10,000 for me to get there for the smallest booth. There's a membership, and then there's a booth fee on top of that, and then the hotels are outrageous, and then there's the airfare, and then there's transporting all of the shit to build a booth when you get there.
Yeah, well,
that's real, and that's the little guy. If you want to be the little player there.
Well, and on top of that, there's more than that. For example, I was at a booth today, and they're just a little tiny booth. They have to pay an extra $130 a day, or for over the 4 or 5 days, to have their sign plugged in. They have to hire like local, union people to build their booth. They can't do anything. And there's just more like cost on top of cost on top of cost. It's not just the booth. It's like when you get your cell phone bill and you got the $99 plan, and it ends up you're paying $162 a month, and it's just like they keep adding shit to it,
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's a lot of little things they get you for. If you want carpet in your booth, that's more money.
Yeah.
If you want trash cans in your booth, that's more money.
Yeah, and it's just, I think people are over it, and I think moving to Denver, the reason they moved to Denver, for people that don't know, there is the show here in town, and that, you kind of come and see everything. And then there's a few days where you go up into the mountains and you can like demo everything, the demo days. Well, it used to be when the show was in Vegas, they did the show in Vegas. And then a few weeks afterwards, the demo days were, in Denver, wherever, and people would go up to Breck or, Copper, wherever they were happen to, have it. And the whole point of moving it to Denver was that it could kind of put all that in one. You come to the show, you have your couple days in town, you go up to the mountain and you have a couple days. But I don't think what they took into account is that a lot of the foreign people like coming to Vegas. And they like Vegas. And there's so much to do in Vegas other than the snow show. You know what I mean? And a lot of these foreign accounts for people that are these global companies, they go to ISPO now, where they used to come here. Australia used to come here. Asia used to come here. And now they don't, because to them, they don't see a value in Denver. Denver's a rad place, but it doesn't have that glamour mystique outside of, the U.S. that Vegas does. And we can all agree to that. I've heard more and more people say they wish it were still in Vegas. They wish it was still in Vegas. And I don't know, all these things are contractually obligated. I don't know how long they've signed on with the city of Denver to be here, and I don't know what will happen after that. But the one thing I can tell you is that there's a lot of open floor space in the snowboard area. Like, it's obvious that Burton and Mervyn and that aren't here. Like, these things are usually packed to the gills, and there's big chunks of space that are empty.
Well, I in no way want to come off as partial towards, positive for SIA or negative against it. The folks that do a lot of the orchestration of that show actually live about 30 miles from me here, and I know them, really nice folks. But yeah. People are voting with their dollars is what I'm hearing.
Right. And it's easy to be – this is just complaints from this side. There's always the back end, what is going on the other end that they have to deal with. Maybe logistically it was just a nightmare to have people fly into Vegas and then a few weeks later fly to Denver. Maybe they heard a ton of complaints about that, But I'm just going from the experience I've had, in the last 4 or 5 years here, that's where it's headed,
Well, the thing that's curious for me is the on-snow demo portion being close to Denver makes sense on the surface, but you've pointed out something that, the international folks liked Vegas. I know, talking with a lot of the domestic folks, that they liked Vegas too, because you're in the industry. At some point, you want to escape from it. Plus, a lot of these guys that own shops are older. They're not
going to get out there and ride all that product.
That's right.
And well, like for us, we don't stay because we have a regional show, a regional demo with all the companies that we deal with anyway in just 2 weeks at Snow Basin Resort. We just go up there. That's way easier. We sleep in our own beds and we can go up there to that.
And pretty much every region has that option. So
yeah, I totally agree with you. On the surface, it seems like a good idea on paper. I just don't think it's panning out as well as it looked like on paper. You know what I mean? So
I wonder if they ever considered doing the demo at Las Vegas Ski Hill. I don't know what it's called. It's right there.
That was my thing too. Like that's a rad little place if you've ever been there. It's actually pretty rad. It's very, very. It's not up to date. It's very antiquated, but that's okay. It's not like it's not busy anyway. So having that influx of people won't be a pain in the ass because it's not going to hamper people that are there already because there's really not that many people there, especially in the middle of the week.
Yeah, so. And lots of times when you're demoing boards, having a smaller mountain is beneficial. You can take 2 short runs on whatever chair right there and not be in the back bowls of Vail on one board all day.
Right. So, yeah, that's just what I see from me, and I'm just a little fish in the ocean in this place here. So, but those I think are the major complaints coming from our industry and the biggest news, of the moment. So,
So in the folks that are there from the snowboard side, what have you seen as far as any sort of technical innovation or trend or just kind of ongoing theme?
You know what? I would say right this year, I think everything, the overreaching theme, there's two things going on. One is that everybody now has crazy shaped boards and all and like 5 different super powder board kind of thing, because that's a trend. Is funny shapes again is hot. But the other one is everything is really conservative. Like there's like color palettes are real conservative. That no one's really there's no huge innovations this year, and I think a lot of that is because there was quite a few rough years, and a lot of people over the last season or two have just kind of got back on their feet, and no one wants to roll the dice yet. You know what I mean? Like even Neff, which when I say Neff, you think the most insane, crazy prints you can think of. They have like army green jackets, they have black jackets, some basic plaid. They do have some bright stuff, but they don't have a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, it's very conservative this year. It's interesting.
When I think of Neff, the first thing that comes to my mind is like a bag of Skittles spilled all over a T-shirt.
Yeah. And so, there's everything is real conservative. Everything looks like, the nitro stuff looks like nitro stuff. It's just new pictures. And that goes with everybody. Arbor stuff looks like Arbor, but it's new, kind of some new stuff going on. Nobody's really come out with anything that's insane. Everybody's got a few tweaks, of course, but there's nothing insane. And I just think that's because of the times we've went through recently, and I just don't think anyone's really willing to make a big gamble yet. They need to get their feet back under them, play it safe a couple years.
Starting to see some photos trickle out on social media and what have you. And one of the things that's interesting that's changed just even in the short time since I've been out of a shop now, 3 years, is that for us to have this conversation and put it out there public right at the same time that the show is going on, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, would have been like heresy. It would have been a no-no. You're talking about new product that is privileged information. And this is a relationship between the retailers and the manufacturers and maybe some media folks. And we're going to very tightly control the way this information is disseminated out to the public. Well, now you're starting to see leaks from the manufacturers during production.
Yeah.
It's such a different dynamic that it's so cool that you can be there talking about it live, where just a couple of years ago, it was interesting watching like your blog and some of the other blogs manage that and just kind of really break new ground into, okay, I'm going to go to the show, I'm going to take a picture of this, and I'm going to do a review on it right now on the spot, and it's public and everybody knows. And from your point of view, how is that managed now? Or is there anyone that still has apprehension or wants to kind of keep things secret?
There's always been a few companies that don't have their booth accessible to the public. Most booths you can walk into, you know what I mean? But there's always been a couple companies that are pretty, like have somebody at the desk and you have, go through them to get behind the scenes. And usually it's clothing companies because their designs can have a lot of last minute changes. So they're very protective of their stuff. You know what I mean? And I'm talking companies that are exclusively clothing. I'm not talking about companies like, for example, Nitro and L1, are hand in hand. So you can see L1 stuff because they have a whole, not all their eggs are in that basket of just clothing. But Volcom, their booth has always just been a wall. And there are people out there, and if you have an appointment, then you can go inside and see the stuff. But no media is going to get in there. No, you know what I mean? Other than like the really big guys, and then I don't know how much that is controlled, as far as we can let you see this or whatever. But even people like, Holden, they're very, you can't get right back because they don't want you taking pictures of their gear because these are industry leaders, even though Holden's gone through some issues, they're still like a fashion, they're still one of those brands. They started all the stuff that some of these other companies are, really doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so they have to be very protective of what they're thinking about for next year, because other companies in that clothing side of it, you can change stuff so quickly.
Yeah.
You know?
That makes me think that other than creating a demand for the product by saying, hey, you can't get in here, and having all these retailers walk by that want to be a Holden dealer, want to be a Volcom dealer, what other value to SIA and having that booth that only the prearranged appointments can get into, what value is it to them? They're not getting drive-by traffic or exposure other than people that are going, oh, I can't have that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in general you do want to make an appointment with people, if you're a buyer and stuff. But I mean, they'll fit you in. If you're like a random person from some, mom and pop shop in North Carolina, and you're coming out here for the first time and you don't know what Holden is, but you got a shop, they're going to get you in there. You want to come in there. You know what I mean? Media is different. If they want to put pictures out of their product, they'll put it out. So, with us, I have a really good relationship with Mikey. He's a great guy. So, I've seen some of the stuff. And he didn't say anything about, like, don't publish these pictures or do, and I didn't take any pictures. I didn't even ask. I just kind of looked through the line and kind of just touch base with them on how everything's going. And the line, and Holden specifically looks good. It's very Holden,
My favorite outerwear company, I have I've had 3 Holden jackets. I lost one, and it's probably my most prized possession that I've ever lost in my life.
I have a couple different things of theirs, but I have a jacket they made. It's got to be 7 or 8 years old. It's the first year they tried to do that they did the hemp line, and it's a hemp jacket, and I think it's like 8 years old, and it is still in perfect condition. And I love it. It's brown. I don't wear it a lot now. I do have some tan pants I'll wear from time to time because I'm a weirdo. I have to match things. I can't just thinking about that. Yeah, I have to match my stuff, so I'm vain. What can I say? So
being in Colorado and talking about hemp clothing makes me think, what role is weed playing in the show?
It's snowboarding. Weed was always here, regardless of what the law was. So, it didn't do it hadn't done anything. It still stinks at 4 o'clock, and we have companies like Smokin'. Smokin' was around long before legalized weed in Colorado. So,
Is there anyone giving away like free edibles or anything at their booth?
Not that I have seen. There was a company last year, and boy, how do I proceed with this? Let's say there was a company last year that gave away a tobacco grinder. So in celebration of the new laws. So yeah, and then you could use to grind anything you wanted to in it. How about that?
On the topic of giveaways, are you seeing, maybe with the perceived crunch and the reduction in size, are people giving stuff away in any quantity? It's always a challenge. I've been on both sides of it, as a retailer, and I've been behind the booth with some companies in the past, and it's a challenge to find something affordable enough to give away that's still even worth it.
Yeah, most people are T-shirts, as usual. Nitro has traditionally always had some kind of cool thing, and honestly, I don't know what or if they have anything this year. I try to avoid taking all that stuff because it's just more junk to have. You know what I mean? Arbor gave away whiskey last year, little bitty vials of whiskey, and they had some this year too. I didn't drink it. I have it, but I didn't drink it. I'm not that brave. It comes in a box that says made in China. So, if you want to take shots of whiskey that comes out of a box that says made in China, be my guest. But I am not.
That's a dice roll.
Yeah.
So,
but go ahead.
Are there any other trends amongst the folks attending, like any particular male facial hair trends. Does everybody look? Is everybody rocking the big Pat Moore beard, or what's
Oh
going
yeah,
on?
the beard. It's the beard quotient is pretty high. It's pretty high. And speaking of Pat Moore, I definitely think the two trends that have kind of been battling the last few years are kind of a retros 80 trend and then a 90s like that lumberjack kind of look. And I definitely see that lumberjack kind of look winning out. Earth tones, red plaids, very much Pat Moore when you think of that, and beards. And I see that kind of pulling ahead this year.
I heard a term yesterday called lumbersexual.
Oh my God. So has everything got to be about sex?
Well, I just think it's for the hipster who maybe has a little bit of money and is like really well groomed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think that is that nod to that conservatism, like that muted palette, that green that's kind of got a broader appeal than some kind of crazy, like two-tone, like hot pink, bold stripe with a little bit of teal on it, kind of thing. I think that lumberjack winning out is a little more nod to that conservatism where you're trying to appeal to the broadest audience you can right now to just get those sales and you know what I mean. There is a lot I see, and you've probably already seen this already in the stuff from this past season, but going back to a lot of that patchy kind of stuff where like you have like a green jacket with like but the pockets are brown.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or like the shoulders are a different color than the chest. That was very 90s. Specifically think of like Special Blend stuff of that era.
Yep.
That was like that. That's kind of coming back. I've seen that here and there. But
Very cool. What have you been able to accomplish personally? I mean, you're there for business, right?
these first couple days, I've really just kind of been here with the guys from Arcade, the Salt Lake magazine that I do some contributing for and work for. And then those guys are going home in the morning, and then I'm going to stay another day and kind of handle personal business. So I've kind of done a couple things, on the personal side. And it's snowboarding, 90% of the plan or, 90% of the plans made don't ever come to fruition. So that's why you have to plan out 100 things so you get 10 of them to, to happen. So I'm going to take tomorrow to really kind of try to seal up some personal stuff for like brutosandsnow.net. And, but I think the general reception to like Arcade was great. And just, yeah, I think everyone's positive. Everyone feels like, whew, we made it through that shitty few years. We've kind of had a year or two of, we've held steady. You know what I mean? And I think people are ready to go forward and do some kind of crazy stuff, but we're just, making sure that everything's good before you can do it,
Right, kind of exiting a consolidation period.
Yeah. And, infrastructures were thin. People were pulling double duties being, I'm the ad sales / marketing / social media guy, people doing 3 or 4 jobs that really, or one person doing what should really have been 2 or 3 people's jobs, and I think we're coming out of that to where companies are looking to kind of expand again. You know what I mean?
See,
and
that's all more of a reason for it to be at Vegas. So these guys are like super stressed all year long. They come to the show, have meetings all day. And then afterwards, they can like go get a massage, maybe go over to the strip club, like actually relax and get rid of some of that stress.
Yeah, for sure. So I would like to see that for sure. I'd like to go back there.
Well, dude, thank you so much for chatting with me about the show. As we're wrapping up here, one final question that's of a personal interest of mine. What is the snow skate presence there, if any?
Almost zero, actually. Premiere is here, which I know you probably remember Premiere from back in the day as one of the first ones.
Yep.
And I think they're one of those companies that's probably been bought and sold. And you would think that like if anyone was able to capitalize on it, they should be able to. But it's just some dude sitting at a booth and no one talking to him. I think there are a lot of those companies that get bought and sold, and these poor guys that buy these companies just think that they can rely on that name and come in here, and that's never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I think in this industry, once you lose it, you lose it. You can't get it back.
Yeah, snowboarding
You
has
know.
a BS factor. It calls bullshit for sure.
Yeah. So
I think Grassroots is there, right? For POW
yeah,
surfers.
actually talked to those guys today. I think they've been here a couple times. They usually are kind of posted up with the Mountain Approach guys. Those
Yep.
guys kind of sharing a booth with them, and there's a lot of people I still need to talk to. I haven't stopped and talked to Monument because I want to do some stuff one-on-one with them and talk to them, and I'll talk to them tomorrow, and Giggy at Slash, and there's a lot of guys I haven't really talked to, but I've touched base with most people and be like, hey, if you're here Saturday, I want to come around. And so
Yeah, Monument's under new ownership. A couple of younger guys teamed up and bought it for my buddy Dave Tran, I believe.
oh yeah,
6-8 months ago. Yeah,
okay,
young guys, super excited, want to move the brand, expand distribution, and kind of continue the direction Dave was going with. I don't know how many folks know about Monument, but it was a very art-driven brand.
yeah, for sure.
Almost,
I've always
almost to a
been
fault.
been around almost 10 years, right?
Yeah. They're right out of my backyard here. I'm just north of the DC Beltway, and they were on the south side. But the thing that they struggled with is that they were just so true to that, from my point of view, is that lots of times they wouldn't brand the board as even being Monument. It was just like, no, it's about the art, and that was fucking cool. And they did some boards that got some like major press and like international magazines and stuff that were just almost kind of controversial on some of them, but it was hard to always track it back to them because the board didn't say Monument on it so many times. So I think these guys have found a way to respect the art and the original mission, but also grow the brand and gain that recognition too.
Yeah. That's cool. So yeah, I've always kind of really been into what they do, and they're a cool brand, and I do wish more people knew about them. So, well, if we're done, I can wrap up. I can tell you a couple quick trends. 5 different companies, 5 different boards, pizza graphics. Hey, where did that come from? How did all these random companies get together and have pizza graphics? But yeah, multiple companies with pizza graphics. A lot of, like I said, crazy shapes, pal shapes. Overall, my 2 favorite lines is a full line. Everybody's had boards I'm super stoked on, you know what I mean? But as a full line, I think Arbor's line is really cool. Arbor's line is really good as a whole. And Solomon this year, like as a design, purely art and aesthetics, is really solid. I really into their stuff. It looks really good. So good job to both of those guys for doing that.
Did Arbor drop in a Gucci Pro model?
They did not. He was kind of late to the table, so no. I don't think anybody has a pro model with them this year. Before Gooch and April joined, there was only the pro team was just Hammond and Scotty Vine. Was there somebody I'm missing? I think there's somebody I'm missing on there, but they kind of revamped. They were really short-ended there, and so they added Frank April, Mark Carter, and Gooch. And Frank April blew his knee out not too long ago. He's on a little scooter, so his season maybe. I'm not gonna speculate. I don't know anything, but he's definitely on a scooter here. So
that's a bummer. Hope he recovers fast.
It is a bummer. Yeah, so Arbor's really good. A couple single standout boards. Rome has some good boards. They have a really cool thing. I can't remember if it might be the Artifacts. I'm not quite sure, but it's called the Degenerati, kind of a play on the Illuminati.
Right.
And it's got it's really kind of a cool thing. They always do kind of cool stuff like that. And Yes has a board that is a completely blank board. It's just a complete rectangle, and it is shape your own board. That's really kind of cool. So if you got the balls and a jigsaw, you can pretty much end up with anything you want,
Then do you take some epoxy to the edges, or?
I don't know how it works, but a couple of these things I have pictures of. So if you want me to send them to you, maybe you can put them on Facebook.
Yeah, gladly. I'll put them in the show notes too.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to do that, I can send you just a few things. I did see a couple kook things. Oh, the biggest thing I saw was I didn't even want to get drug into it, so I just took a picture of it. All I can say is like a plastic board with wheels on it, so it goes on land, obviously, but it's got bindings behind each wheel. It's kind of hard to explain, but there'll be a picture of it. So basically, it's almost like a snowboard kind of thing that you ride on land. I don't know. It's oh my god.
I wish that AJ was here so much right now because he had a very successful amateur mountain boarding career.
Oh god. AJ, you're killing me, buddy. You're killing me.
Oh man. Well, thanks so much, Daniel. Enjoy the rest of the show. I know that there's some more big events tonight. The Trans World Riders Poll.
Yeah.
Is
gonna head out there.
Cool. Who is there a rumor as to like who's gonna win for the video part?
You know what? When the announcements were first made, I looked at the list, but I couldn't tell you who's on the list now. I will say, I own most of the videos of the year. My two favorite parts of the year are Austin Sweeten and Bodie Merrill's parts are my two favorite parts. And honestly, I think I like Austin's part over Bodie's, and that's one because Bodie told me everything he hated about his part to me. and I was like, oh, you're kind of right, You
didn't see that before, though.
Yeah, and I think that Bodie might be kind of falling victim to being Bodie. You know what I mean? He's got like 3 or 4 never been dones in his part, and I'm still like, Austin's part was awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Bodie's just so next level that, and Tony Hawk went through that phase. You remember that? Like in the 90s where he would get second place in contests because he couldn't out Tony Hawk himself.
Yeah, he's judged against himself. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that Bodie might fall victim to that this year. We'll see what he does next year. But, yeah, I mean, there's teasers are already dropping. 32 teaser dropped tonight. Think Tank teaser's already dropping. It's crazy how the world is nowadays. You don't have to wait anymore. So,
well, thank you, brother. Always great talking with you, and thank you for being the first repeat guest on the podcast too.
Thank you, man. Anytime.
Go big tonight, but don't overshoot the landing.
Don't worry, I'm not.
All right, Daniel. I'll talk to you, man.
Yeah, have a good one, Nate.
Bye.
Bye.
To keep up with Daniel, peep his blog at burritosandsnow.net. We get into the whole conversation about why it's a .net back in podcast episode number 7. Or follow him on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at burritosandsnow. Also, check out the Utah snowboarding magazine that he contributes to, Arcade Mag. So, as of today, Sunday, February 1st, the trade show portion of SIA is wrapped up, and the on-snow demos will start at Copper Mountain tomorrow. And much of the new gear will be available to view on the internet. I have a few more podcast stickers that I want to give away, so share a picture on Instagram of what you think is the coolest new snowboarding product. The board that you want to ride, a new jacket from the guys at Holden or over at Owner Operator, or the new selfie stick that you just can't live without. Whatever it is, post up the pic to Instagram with the hashtag #TheNotSnowboardingPodcast. I'll pick a few at the end of the week to win one of the new die-cut podcast stickers. Check the show notes at thenotsnowboardingpodcast.com for the pictures from the trade show that Daniel mentioned during the episode. On another note, I want to sincerely say thank you for listening. The podcast audience is growing rapidly, listeners are telling their friends about the show, and AJ and I are constantly hearing positive feedback, like this review left by a listener in iTunes. Nate Mousson is the Ira Glass of Shred. Sure, snow is the thread, but every episode quickly pivots to passion, life, and beyond. I found it through Todd Richards posting about his episode, and now I'm binge listening to the series and looking forward to more. After every listening, I Google at least 3 or 4 topics from the episode. Thanks, Nate. Keep it going. Wow, that's such a thorough and moving compliment. Thank you, listener, who I only know by your iTunes username of PE395. We'll have Ira Glass host of the acclaimed radio show This American Life, take us out with some very powerful advice. Until next time, peace.
Nobody tells people who are beginners, and I really wish somebody had told this to me, is that all of us who do creative work, like, we get into it, and we get into it because we have good taste. But it's like there's a gap that for the first couple of years that you're making stuff, what you're making isn't so good, okay? It's not that great. It's trying to be good. It has ambition to be good, but it's not quite that good. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, your taste is still killer. And your taste is good enough that you can tell that what you're making is kind of a disappointment to you. You know what I mean? A lot of people never get past that phase. A lot of people at that point, they quit. And the thing I would just say to you with all my heart is that most everybody I know who does interesting creative work, they went through a phase of years where they had really good taste. They could tell what they were making wasn't as good as they wanted it to be. They knew it felt short. It didn't have this special thing that we wanted it to have. And the thing I would say to you is everybody goes through that. And for you to go through it, if you're going through it right now, if you're just getting out of that phase, you got to know it's totally normal. And the most important possible thing you could do is do a lot of work. Do a huge volume of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week or every month you're going to finish one story. Because it's only by actually going through a volume of work that you're actually going to catch up and close that gap. And the work you're making will be as good as your ambitions. In my case, I took longer to figure out how to do this than anybody I've ever met. It takes a while. It's going to take you a while. It's normal to take a while, and you just have to fight your way through that. Okay?
Thank you for listening to the Not Snowboarding Podcast. To hear more episodes, go to www.notsnowboardingpodcast.com.